Okay, we're going to start looking at religions. We've looked at previous week what religions are the major beliefs of the certain religions. We're going to now take those religions and divide them into two categories. One of them being known as universalizing religions, and then another one being known as ethnic. So a lot of this has to come back to the questions that geographers ask. Remember that geography is the study of space, and so they call this spatial patterns. And so some of the things when they're investigating religions is they want to know why some religions are found throughout the world, so why they're widespread, and while some religions are found to be only in certain parts of the world, localized. So for example, if you were to look at Catholicism, you could see that it is found here in southern and western Europe, but then it also has spread over here to Latin America. But if you look right here at Hinduism, you'll find that it is not necessarily found elsewhere in the world. Same thing with like Buddhism. It's more centrally located in those areas. So they want to know, geographers want to know why that is the case. Why is space organized so that certain religions are found among the world and some are only? So let's go. One of the things they look at is they define religions into two categories. So the first one is a universalizing religion. And this is a religion that attempts to be global. One of the main things that occurs with this is missionary work, where certain religions will actually send people out to different parts of the world in an attempt to convert them to that religion. A lot of this is with Muslims and with Christianity. Those have always been part of their history. And then another thing that makes it universalizing is it appeals to all cultures. So as an American, I can also connect with this religion. As an African, I can connect with this religion. As an Asian, I can connect with this religion. So it goes across cultures. And then the interesting thing with universalizing religion is there is a place of origin. They can say this is where this religion was found, and they can also trace it back to a single individual. In all of these cases, a male individual. Now, ethnic groups is a little bit different, where it's one group in one place. So it doesn't appear to all cultures. It doesn't spread itself out. Typically, they don't have missionaries who are going out trying to convert people to their religion. And a lot of these are old religions, and so because of that, their origin is unknown. So let's talk about what religions are universalizing and which ones are ethnic. And so in your notes, you would just list these down. So universalizing religions are Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and this is a lesser known religion, but it also seeks to go across boards, which is called Sikhism. Ethnic religions, these are ones for one group and one place, is Hinduism. So this is found mostly in India, and it's mostly the Indians who adhere to this religion. Judaism connects with those of Jewish ethnicity. There's Chinese traditional religions. This is known as Confucianism and Taoism. And then there are religions called animistic religions, which we'll discuss a little bit this week as well, which are local Aborigine religions. Now, if you need some more time to write this down, you can, of course, hit pause and go back. Now, who practices what? So universalizing religion is the most, which makes sense, because once again, these are religions that attempt to be global. So 58% of the world connects with the religion that is universalizing. 26% connect to a religion that is ethnic. So it makes sense, once again, it's smaller, because there's only one group in one place. And then, of course, there are 16% in the world who do not adhere to any religion. So one of the characteristics of a universalizing religion is it can be traced back to one person in one place. And so if we look at Buddhism, Buddhism was founded by a man named Siddhartha Gautama, who later becomes known as Buddha. And he was a prince in India who, through meditation, through pondering about life, found what the Buddhism calls the way, which is a way to connect back to the universe and find peace in your life. And so Buddhism always connects those back to his teachings. Christianity connects their religion back to Christ as the founder of their religion. And Christ was actually a Jew at the time, and so living in Israel. And so that's the point of origin. Of course, those who connect with Christ reject Judaism and start the new religion of Christianity. And then Islam also connects back to an individual. In this case, his name was Muhammad. And according to Islam religion, Muhammad received a vision from the angel Gabriel and gave him the teachings of Allah or God. And he was in Saudi Arabia. So how were these spread? Because once again, one of the elements of universalizing religion is its spread worldwide. So we're going to look at how they're spread. As a review, let's review some of the key elements of diffusion or spreading. So relocation diffusion always occurs with people moving. People take that religion, people take their ideas with them. So once again, it's the idea of relocation diffusion is like people with luggage. When they move, they take their luggage with them. So when they move, they often take their language and their religion with them. The interesting thing is religion has a tendency to stay longer within a culture group than a language does. And then there's an expansion diffusion is where it spreads outward. And so this is where things are moved through a snowball effect. It's maybe not people moving, but the idea is moving faster and faster and faster. And there's three ways you can do that. One is hierarchical, where there's a person in power who changes that culture or connects with that culture, and then it just spreads further and further on. There's contagious, where it just spreads kind of on its own simultaneously. And then there's stimulus, where there's this idea that moves that sparks more ideas along the way. Most of religions are going to be spread through relocation diffusion and hierarchical diffusion. So let's first of all look at the largest universalizing religion, which is Christianity. And as mentioned previously, Christianity was spread through a couple of different ways. First of all, hierarchical. When Christianity was first formed, the followers of Jesus Christ were actually not well accepted. They were surrounded by the Jewish faith, so they were rejected there. And then the Roman Empire at the time saw Christianity as a threat. And so a lot of the times the Christians had to go underground to practice their religion for fear of death with them. Well, according to the legend, about 300 years after the death of Christ, a Roman emperor named Constantine, went into battle, and at the time he was losing the battle, but when he looked up and he saw a cross in the sky, and that rallied him and his troops to win that victory. Well, seeing that cross and the sign, of course, the symbol of Christianity, Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity because he was a person in power, and at the time, the people were always the religion of their leaders. That automatically spread it to the common people. And so suddenly Christianity was well accepted and practiced and spread throughout the area. Then, as Europeans started to go and move to different parts of the world, they took that religion with them. For example, Spanish missionaries would come over to Latin America, areas like Mexico and Peru and Brazil, and they would convert the people who were living there too. So they took this religion with them as they colonized and settled parts of the Americas and brought that with them. Christianity still spreads today, whether through missionary work or just people accepting that. And so you begin to see a contagious spreading where it's gaining popularity across the globe. And another great example of relocation diffusion is you can see the current Pope of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church, of course, its headquarters in Italy, but the current Pope was actually born in Argentina. And so you can see those ideas spreading to Latin America and taking. Islam, of course, was founded by Muhammad, and after Muhammad converted his tribe, they actually went out to conquer other tribes and converted them to Islam too. So you can see this map right here. This is the area that Muhammad had actually conquered and therefore converted the people to it. And then you can see that they continued to expand through military conquest, taking that religion with them. So this is still hierarchical because it was the military who would take over and force the conversion over to Islam. And then relocation, as traders and missionaries began to start spread, then those ideas was taken with them as well. For example, Indonesia, which is over near Australia, is the largest Muslim country, but it's nowhere near the Middle East. And the reason why is because as traders and missionaries went over there, they converted the people into those religions. Now, Buddhism also spread. There was an Indian emperor named Osaka, and he was one of the first to kind of convert to Buddhism and give it legitimacy, because remember, India is actually Hinduistic here. And so he kind of gave some validity to the idea, and that allowed it to be spread through other regions as well. As traders and people began to start coming into contact, especially over here in China, they began to start seeing Buddhism take hold. Now, Buddhism's a little bit different than other religions in that it's more open, and so often what happened was Buddhism would then mesh with other religions. So let's kind of talk a little bit more what that means in detail. So one of the things you have to realize is some of these universalizing religions are monotheistic, and that means they believe in only one God. And that particularly is Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. And because you believe in one God, it comes back to this idea there can only be one religion because there's one God and it's his or her religion. Whereas a polytheistic believes in many gods, or they believe more in this idea of the universe, where it's more finding harmony with the universe, not necessarily a particular God. Or the universe portrays itself in many forms of gods. So what happened is Buddhism doesn't necessarily have a god that they worship. It's more the ideas found in Buddhism on how to find oneness with nature, with the universe. So what happened is because there wasn't a god that had one religion one way, Buddhism started as it's spreading mixed with other religions. For example, the Japanese religion Shintoism practices kind of worship of their ancestors. Well, that's still mixed with Buddhism because Buddhism is searching for truth, and so you could see that truth might come from your ancestors. So what happened is Buddhism, even though it's a universalizing religion, started to mix with ethnic religions as well. Now, most ethnic groups are localized, and so you typically find the area of where the ethnic group belongs with that practices it. There's one exception, and that is Judaism. So Jews, their homeland is in modern-day Israel, which you can see over here on this map. But most of the time, they weren't living in that land. There's several times before the beginning of 0 AD that the Jews were kicked out, then returned back, then kicked out and returned back. But more modern is about 70 years after the birth of Christ, is the Jews were kicked out by the Romans in Israel, destroyed their homeland, destroyed the temple, and said you have to go elsewhere to live. So what happened is the Jews had to go find other places to live, and many of them went to Europe, many of them went to Russia. If you ever saw Fiddler on the Roof, those are Jews who are living in Russia. And they would live in areas that were specifically for Jews, and they call these ghettos, where the Jewish people were living amongst other ethnic groups, but they were still in a kind of small group together. So because of that, they often didn't mix with other ethnic groups. Like, for example, you had a lot of Jewish Germans who still spoke Yiddish, which is a Jewish language, who still practiced Judaism, even though German is more of a Protestant country. Well, that, of course, kind of caused some friction, which led to the Holocaust in the 1940s. And so afterwards, they said, we need a place to stay. And so that what you have is you had the creation of Israel as a Jewish state. So it's a localized religion now, but because it was spread out for so long, you still see a lot of Jews not living in that localized place. One of the best examples is the United States. The United States has the largest Jewish grouping outside of Israel. And so it's an ethnic religion that geographically looks a little different than the rest.